Welcome, everyone, to Financing Your Next Billion. And we're back doing the Harvest Moon time, and we're continuing our series on the fourth industrial revolution. We're hoping that everyone is enjoying the Harvest Moon as it is coming in over our Halloween time here in the United States. And we're seeing the Harvest Moon all over the world. And as we all know, that Harvest Moon kind of got its name from the fact that it has that nice, big, bright sunset type look. And that's generally the time all around the world, not only in the United States, during the time that the harvest is being brought in. And that's where it pins the name Harvest Moon. So I'm Yvonne Gamble, and I'm here with my host, Jerome Curry. How are you doing today, Jerome?
I am fantastic. We are, you talk about harvest and you talk about how, now farmers are doing things differently and the different types of harvest that they bring in, the different types of seasons. So I think today's episode is going to be pretty exciting because we're going to be talking about some of these changes that are being seen throughout different industries and how they're being handled by different folks. And so we're pretty excited about that and being able to get started. Yvonne, what's our topic for the day? I'll let you talk a little bit about that and then we can get started.
Okay, excellent. Well, today what we're going to be talking about is the fourth industrial revolution's its impact on society. Because as well, what we're dealing with is what are we going to do? Now that we're well into the fourth industrial revolution, we're in about our sixth year. And, as we know, as we've already discussed with you, these revolutions generally go about 80 to 100 years. And so this one is going to be no different. But as far as the amount of time, but the impact that it's going to have is very different. And that's what we're going to be discussing here today. The first thing we're going to look at is the impact on business. How is business going to change, rearrange, adapt, and move forward during this time? What are some of the types of things that you can kind of expect and you can kind of see in the world of business? And then we're going to look at the world of government and how an industrial revolution actually plays a big part on how governments are actually, hand out and dispense the work that they have to do. And then we'll finish up with the impact on people, just people in general. We want to look at, how are they going to fare during this time? Because all these changes, although they do happen and they're going to happen, people also can make a change and they can make a difference as to how that impact is going to impact their lives, especially when they're in the know. And that's one of the very reasons why we want to take this time to talk with you and have this series on the fourth industrial revolution to help to keep you in the know. So with that, we're going to jump right in and start talking about business. And I'm going to get Jerome's perspective. He's real good when it comes to business. And I just wanted to kind of hop right in here, Jerome, and say that across, all industries, there's clear evidence that the technologies that are up under the fourth industrial revolution are having a major impact on business. Can you just kind of give us a capsule, a bird's eye view, a 10,000 foot view? What does that look like? What does that mean?
Sure. An underlying theme in a lot of the conversations that I've been having across the world with business owners and business executives is that the pace of how innovation is changing and how the velocity of disruption, they are oftentimes hard to anticipate. What's happening is a lot of times that these drivers inside of the fourth industrial revolution, the technologies that are coming out, the rate of change, the rate of pace, oftentimes it comes as a bit of a surprise for even the best connected and the most well-informed. Well, what are we saying here? Well, many industries are seeing the introduction of technologies that create entirely new ways of serving existing needs, and they're disrupting the existing value chains. Now, let me give you an example of how this is working and how it has rapidly changed. A perfect example of this would be social media and digital marketing. Let me explain. Before, you could open up a brick and mortar business and feel confident that, I get traffic and that traffic would come to my business. Well, that's changed. Let me explain how. Now, even in talking with adults and people of all ages, they're now looking at the reviews for your business. Oh, wait a minute. What do you mean? I have an online presence? Yes. Whether you know it or not, there's more than likely an opinion of your business that's being formulated and you don't even know about it. So what does that mean for a business owner? Well, you're going to be opening up this brick and mortar business thinking that people are going to come, and they're not coming because you've got reviews out there or you've got a statement out there about you that you're not aware of. That's what you call disruption. Now, this was accelerated significantly for businesses that were prepared and had started doing digital marketing and social media marketing. There was a boom during the pandemic. For those that were not, it ultimately ended up either in significantly decreased business or actually closed doors. There were many companies that ended up closing doors because of the rate of change as well as the rate of technology. So what does this mean for the supply chain? Well, now you're able to look at your supply chain. Your competitors are able to look at their supply chains from an entirely different standpoint. There's now IoT, the Internet of Things. And the Internet of Things can tell you not only where your supply is, it can tell you the exact time it will arrive. It can tell you the exact condition it will arrive. And it can tell you exactly how much of it is being utilized. So imagine, again, if you're a business and you're opening up and you're like, well, I'm just going to put my stuff out there and we want to see what's going to happen. Well, you're going to get ate alive because your competition already knows, they already have a layered amount of data that's coming in. And we'll talk about that data later on and how that's being gathered. That's going to be something that's going to be key. But major shifts on the demand side are also occurring. Growing consumer engagement and new consumer behavior built upon the access to mobile networks. It forces companies to adapt to the way they are designed and how they deliver their products and how they deliver their services. Go ahead, Iman.
Was that then, okay, just so that I understand, so you're telling me, it sounds like, okay, so with a business owner listening to this, but they get the impression then, okay, it looks like it's my business or some parts of my business are out of my control, or how do I get back? How do I control all those different aspects, especially with technology? Now, with the way you're saying that technology and information is able to be disseminated, and a lot of it is disseminated behind the scenes, how do I gain control, or how do I make it such that is there an industry that's emerging or something that's coming out that can help me to keep control of how my business actually it looks out there from all aspects?
Absolutely. So one of the things that you want to be able to do now, as a business owner, you really want to start having a strong understanding of not who your customer was, but who are they today. And then also build into your systems, build into your processes, data intelligence. That's going to be important that you make the investment there before you could potentially just open up your business and not have all of these tools and have a chance of being able to be successful. Now, without these tools and without these resources, you put yourself at a severe competitive disadvantage. So it's so important that when you're going into your business venture, that you understand these elements of who your customer is, and not only who they are, but where do they have the potential to go. That's how you begin to outpace your competition. You're not just thinking about the now of where they are now, but who are they going to be in 5, 10, 15 years? And then you can input the technology, input the systems, input the intelligence that's going to help you to develop a picture of who your customer is and where they could potentially be going. So a couple of things. On a whole, there are 4 main effects of the fourth industrial revolution has on business. One is on customer expectation, product enhancement, collaborative innovation, and organizational forms. So just to break that out, every year now, iPhone is coming out. Everyone is looking at Apple to come out with the next it product. It hasn't come out yet, but we're waiting because we know that there's a new it product, whether it's going to be virtual intelligence, whether it's going to be AR, augmented reality. We know that there's some new products that are getting ready to come out and again change things. So we're looking at different product enhancements. So you want to start thinking about that as well. You need to start thinking about, okay, how am I going to enhance my product? Your product cannot afford to stay the same 2, 3, 4 years in a row. You have to update and adapt your product as well. You have to take a look at your customer expectations. Your customer may have expected for your product to be delivered at a certain time. They may want a faster delivery. So taking a look at what are my customer expectations, and then also understanding how can you enhance your product with digital capabilities that add value. So if you've got a system of books, or if you've got if you provide services, what can you do on the data side that's going to add value to your clients? It could be something as simple as, I get a text reminder of my dentist appointment. Much added value. It could be something as a simplified process in how you fill out your applications. Again, overall, what you're looking to do is to take your technology and enhance your products and services. That's how you can be able to maximize in the fourth industrial revolution. Yvonne, any comments on those before you talk about the impact on the government?
Yes. So what I'm hearing and understanding, and that is that innovation is going to be a combination of different types of technologies.
It is.
And basically what you're saying to businesses, and that is not just simply to wait on the next big that comes out, but be thinking about, because you can kind of see the trend, you can see the pattern. It's kind of like looking down the road, and you can see where the road is going to curve and bend, and you start developing your business modeling to some of those things to begin to take advantage of what's coming out or what's going to be coming out.
Absolutely.
So yes, that's very good. And there's so many different forums that are out there that are speaking, to the new innovations and to the new types of things that may be coming or that are in the works. So get ahead of the game, get ahead of the systems.
Absolutely.
And that does lead us, into our next segment, and that's going to be the fourth industrial revolution's major impact on government. What can you bring to this for us, Jerome?
Sure. So when we talk about the government, simultaneously, governments will gain new technological powers to increase their control over populations. However, Yvonne, talk to us a little bit about some of the pressure that government is going to face when it comes to policy making and engagement. I think that there's going to be some serious issues there, and we'd have to be ready to address those issues. What are your thoughts?
Yes, you're absolutely correct. That to tell us that the governments are going to have to be ready, because what's happening and what's going to continue to happen is, again, just as with businesses, people are not waiting on the government. The government has been traditionally, and it still continues to be traditionally, very slow to actually move forward. And one of the things that we're seeing now is several of the governments are finally coming into the e-government arena. Estonia, one of the little small countries, is probably one of those, believe it or not, that is leading the effort, in e-government. We see a couple of the states in the United States, such as Seattle, which are, very much on board, with some of their different systems, such as the voting system that they have. It's totally electronic. And so governments and countries and cities and states, what have you, provinces, are going to have to get on board, with all of this. And they're going to have to get ahead of the realm, because if they're going to control the population as opposed to the population controlling the government, although we do say government by the people, but the government does have a lot of control over what goes on with the people. In order for them to keep up with that, they're going to have to get ahead of innovation. So what your governments are doing right now is they're trying to do exactly that. And that is get ahead of innovation and to actually be able to operate, within that, because they're finding themselves far behind the 8 ball, and the people are moving forward, and they're more or less carrying, some of these things, and they're going to have to open up more systems. We see here in the United States where NASA, which is one of the largest agencies of our government, and how they have brought into where they actually go out into the general population and have businesses who are actually now carrying the space program forward. And many of the other countries, they're not necessarily following suit with that, but they will be, in recent, years to come.
That is good information. And that's great. And there's even more that I know that you have to share on the government. I've got a question for you when you come back on how the government's going to be able to handle certain aspects of this. But I know that light's ringing, and we've got to go to break, and we'll be right back. All right, and welcome back, everyone. I'm your co-host, Jerome Curry, with Yvonne Gamble, and we're talking about the fourth industrial revolution and how it's going to impact so many aspects of our lives, from business to government and then to people. We were talking about the government, and one of the questions that I thought of, Yvonne, was how can the government preserve the interests of the consumers and the public while continuing to support innovation and technological development? It's a challenging situation. And how are they going to be able to do it?
It's easier said than done. Okay? Let me preface it with that. Our government is going to have to really embrace an agile system. And that's really not something that is synonymous when you say agile and government. Generally, when you think about government, you think about stability and staying the same and keeping a solid, footing. But when you say agile, you're talking about, okay, now you got to be ready to move at a moment's notice and to be adaptable and to be fitting. So basically what our government is going to have to do is it's going to have to set up several different mechanisms to get something done. So what you'll have several layers of how, so that your regulators, you're not just going to simply be regulated just by one body. You're going to have different regulations that, can allow, for some nuances, for some differences as we go through. That's going to look very different for people as well as it is for the governments, because it's hard enough with regulatory. What'll happen is this: regulatory will get if you can understand this, it will become both simplified, but at the same time layered. So what will happen is our regulatory system now is one that is flat and is very voluminous. So a lot of the different regulatory things that are within inside of our government are going to have to be done away with, and we're going to have to go to a more simplified manner, but that's going to regulate us at, say, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. So it kind of gives us that if then else. If you are doing this, these are the regulations that you adhere to. If you are doing something else, there's a new set of regulations. And if you're doing something else, there's another set of regulations. But that allows the government to be agile, to be able to deal with its people at the level where they are. That's going to be something that we have not really done as governing bodies throughout the world.
That is so key. And it's going to be so important for individuals and small groups, for people to really understand that we have to, the people that we're putting in office, they have to be capable and competent, and they have to have, whereas before we looked at certain skill sets of great military might, which is still necessarily needed, but now we need them to be more thinkers. We need them to think critically and be able to process things at a rapid pace. And our government has to be able to do that. They have to be able to look at things from a different standpoint, and then also understand that they cannot be driven just by a small group. That's just not going to work. It may have worked before in the past, but now you really have to look at the different dynamics and how they're going to be hybrids and all of these things that are coming to pass. Yvonne, so what are your thoughts there as we get ready to head into this next topic?
Well, I'm going to tell you, the vulnerability is going to be high. The fears are going to run rampant amongst the people because like it or not like it, as far as the way that our government is ran and the way we do things, people are what you consider used to it. In other words, this is how it operates. I don't like it, but this is the government. Now you're going to come in with a government that really does look like the people. Exactly what you said. Those people that come in with critical thinking, those people that come in with a more business entrepreneurial spirit, not a institutional. See, we have been run up to this point, up to the beginning of the fourth industrial revolution. We have operated from an institutional standpoint. We were operated in the first, second, and third in a architectural start, and it was we had a certain architect. We were in the build-up state, like an architect. They designed the building, they built a building. We were all in the build-up, and then we got it built. So then, in our third industrial revolution time, that was our time that we actually had our structure. Our institution was done, and we set in a lot of institutions. So we had institutional government, and it was very easy, and our government's pretty much stayed the same. There's not much difference from the way the government was ran at the beginning of the third industrial revolution all the way up to now. From machine time to now, up until the beginning of the fourth industrial revolution, it was pretty much that institution. You could easily ascribe to it. You could easily fall into the machine, and you would run from a governmental standpoint. Going into the fourth industrial revolution, this is now exactly as you have prefaced, and this is intelligent thought. That's what is going to govern it. And this is how we're actually doing our business, and this is how we're going to operate going forward. Well, once our government actually comes into that, that's not going to be that easy to actually overlay that over the masses. But that's what's going to happen, because now you can mass up larger groups than you could even with the smaller groups, and they can have more of an impact on the people, on the masses, obviously, because they're a mass group, than even the smaller groups. It's when you have an institutional, they who understand the institution those who understand the institution's rules are able to bend and will those rules to their ways. But now, when you're talking about from a thought standpoint, a mass groups comes up with a thought of what it wants to change something, and now it can pass that information out. Information is no longer Pony Express. It's no longer snail mail. Information passes just as quickly as you see me on this screen. That's how quickly information passes. And so with that being said, and that can actually sway or dissuade a people. And as we know, the people then can sway or dissuade a government. So there's going to be a lot of new modes of things to think about where a government is going to have to actually take into consideration, in their governing of the people.
Absolutely. And that takes us right into our next topic, which is really the impact of the people. And one of the things that I know, Yvonne, is that everything is going to shift. So our notions of how we buy things. I mean, now, you've got grandma that can go to Amazon with one click. You've got our notions of ownership changes. So you now have Airbnb, where our notions of ownership have begun to change. You have different items that are out there now with non-fungible tokens. Again, ownership. So how do you show that you're going to have ownership? Well, you've got this token that shows that you have some type of ownership. So our patterns are deeply impacted by this fourth industrial revolution. One of the things that I'm an enthusiast and a great adopter of technology, but I often wonder and I often contemplate, how are we going to make sure that the ethical and the value system and the honor system is incorporated in technology? So when we start with AI and we start with a self-driving vehicle, is it able to make the distinction of, I can either stop and go through this light, or there's a person that's coming? Is it able to make a distinction and being able to value that? How are we going to, and not only that, but now as we talk about data and how much data is available, as we know, with data comes with power. With, I'm a great Stan Lee fan. With great power comes great responsibility. Well, when we talk about healthcare, and we're able to look at diseases in certain populations and how diseases affect certain populations and how that may affect whether or not a company decides to open up a hospital in a certain area because they have certain clients that have certain diseases that may or may not be profitable to their bottom line. Again, so these issues, these complex issues that we're going to have to navigate, our relationship with our smartphones. What are some of the other areas you think of, Yvonne, just off the top of your head, that we're going to debate?
You have brought a lot to light. Let's take a look at some of the things that you have said. And one of them that really struck me was one of the last things you said, and that was about, I'll go back to that, the relationship with smartphones and what have you in AI. But I did want to address the impact on people from, as you stated, such as with hospitals, because health is just such a critical issue now, with the pandemic, and it's something that everybody is now starkly aware of, as if we weren't before. And you're absolutely right. And there are choices that are being made. The thing about it is this, that very choice that is being made, whether or not to serve a population, and it became very evident populations that weren't being served when we had the pandemic, and when we were at critical mass, and everybody had to, we wanted everybody to be either quarantine or have masks on or have something so we could prevent the spread, of a disease. And that basically was a light that shined on, just the variances in services and what have you. So basically, what's going to have to happen now is we have to address these issues. See, as long as you don't have a pandemic or you don't have something out there, somebody with a flashlight showing you all the different issues, you can kind of, sweep it under the rug and, say, oh, yes, we put some money over here, but nobody sees it as a whole. So nobody really knows what's really going on over there. But now when trade winds start to blow, across those countries or those areas that don't have the type of healthcare other systems have, well, that's an issue. Because now, here comes that disease, across the oceans there. So yes, that is a big issue that we are going to have to deal with. And because basically we got to live with it front and center, and we have to do something about it. And there are things that we can do. And one of the things that we basically will do is, and that is, we will have to stop. We'll have to stop this notion of we're going to give service to one community and we're not going to give service to another community. And simply because of the fact, when we do, we see what happens. When we do that, what do? We doom the whole community as a whole. And that's where we have an opportunity to right that by actually giving everybody the services that they need.
That's huge. One of the biggest debates is going to be about privacy and biotechnology and AI, and the different things that come into place there with how we define human, what we define, how do we define. There are going to be a lot of boundaries that we are going to have to work really hard to cross, and moral and ethical boundaries that we're going to have to work really hard to maintain those boundaries. And I've learned that the more complex things become, the more that you have to have some type of simple methodology or framework or foundation, because without it, you just go, it's just like everything is so complex. Well, when we start to take a look at the data and all of the coming technologies in the future, there's a simple principle, simple passage that says, do unto others as you would have them to do unto yourself. And
that's very good, Jerome. The thing about it is, the one thing that in 2009, I was taking up a course in biotechnology. And as you know, biotechnology is the human and technology intersection. And there's one word that really, it eggs at all of us, and we kind of all danced around it, and we're still doing the dance. And that is that one four-letter word, self. And what defines self? As you say, do unto others as you would unto yourself. When do you define the human? And at what point do you define the biohuman as a self-sustaining entity? That's the biggest issue that we're going to have, and we're going to have to face this issue head on. We avoided it and we averted it when we brought in the use of stem cells, because the big question that we have, I wrote a paper on that, and that is the use of stem cells, not just simply Can we, but should we? Well, we averted that, and we kind of pushed down, the voices of those people like myself who said we really needed to look at this issue before we actually went ahead on. Well, our voices got quieted, and the voices got louder that said, yeah, yes, let's use it. And so stem cells are something that we are using. Well, with that comes the same thing, because then what happens is, when is that where those stem cells are coming from? When does that being become a human being? Because stem cells come from other humans. And then we also get into the issue of the AI. In biotissue, we can put biotissue on a human being, and we can put biotissue on an AI machine. Is that machine not also human? That's the issue. That's the big question that we're going to have to answer. And we're going to have to answer that question not 50 years from now, not 100 years from now, but within the next 20 years, we're going to answer that question. Who is the self, and what is the margin or the differentiating factor between the AI and the human and the hybrid? We have hybrids already. And hybrids, we're not calling them as such, but they will begin. We'll say something else. Now we simply say we're terming people who have the augmented legs or arms or limbs, that have lost limbs or what have you. Well, most certainly they become, or bionics, or whatever we want to call it. But at what point happens where we can take a Jarvis, and we had that heart for a long time? So now you can have that. We are able to. We have mapped the whole genome system. So when in the next 20 years, we'll be able to put that into an augmented body. We can make synthetic skin that is the same as a human skin. It has hair, has follicles. You cut it, you can even make it bleed. So there's a lot of issues here, and that we're going to have to deal with. And I would say to people that stay alert and get involved. And get involved in these discussions, get involved in these think tanks, get involved in these forums, because these are going to make a difference to you. You may not see it today, but it's going to make a difference in your life. If you're going to live and you want to continue to live in this world, you're going to be a part of this change that's going on. And right now, believe you me, AI is a big part of the fourth industrial revolution's impact on people.
That's good. That's good. And Yvonne, that is fantastic. And I'm certain that as we continue, as co-participants in this fourth industrial revolution, as we lead this change in this charge and this rally cry, that we'll be having these discussions even at higher levels. But we want to make sure that we take our audience with us. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jerome Curry with your co-host Yvonne Gamble. Enjoy your day.